Okay, in this video, we're going to be talking about one of the very first things you should learn if you intend on doing work in a recording studio. All right, so if you've ever seen pictures of or actually physically visited a professional recording studio before, it can be a lot. For me personally, I remember one, seeing online, and two, getting to experience even a small scale professional studio, and it was just pure inspiration. I was incredibly excited, and it elicited a curiosity in me that was like, it was so strong. I just wanted to know everything. I wanted to learn it, and I wanted to do it myself. It seemed like such a cool and interesting skill to learn. I wound up putting together my first few pieces of a home studio in my parents' bonus room. You know, when I lived with my parents, I was in high school. And during that, I learned a lot just from experimentation and just trying stuff. You know, I had no education on it. Later, when I made the decision to pack up and leave my hometown in Illinois to move to Los Angeles for recording school, I could not have been more excited. During my time at home, just using my home studio, I had learned so much just from, as I said before, experimenting and just trying stuff. But I did, and I knew it, I missed out on a lot of fundamentals about recording and working in a studio that I could not wait to learn. I was so excited. One, which is incredibly simple. I'm gonna explain the whole thing to you today in this video. By the way, my name's Andrew Masters, and welcome to this new channel. It's called Studio Time. Hit the subscribe button, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump right into it. Now, it's been officially 13 and a half years since that moment I told you where I left my hometown to go to recording school, and a lot has changed over the years. Now, however, this fundamental process that I'm teaching is called signal flow, has not changed and will not change. In fact, it applies to a bunch of things, even outside of the audio recording studio world, but is used every single day in recording. So first things first, take a look at this studio that I'm sitting in right now. This is a multi-use, multi-purpose, professional home studio here in Nashville, Tennessee. There are about 5 different zones that are happening all at the same time. We've got live drums, guitars, amps, keys, vocals, mixing. I've got an accessory station here for if somebody brings something else in and they're just gonna set up kind of in their own zone. Now, each of these zones has microphones or has instruments with microphones on them, always set up. In the studio, we call these mic lines or simply lines. Now, if you've seen a studio setup like this before, you've probably asked yourself the question, how the heck does all of that work? I have no idea. What does all that stuff do? How is it all connected? Well, that's simply what we're gonna go over today. It's called signal flow. So I'll show you that, and I'll show you how to walk into any studio and understand the setup. So when you walk in, you have a good idea for what's happening and how to work within that setup. So as I mentioned before, it's called signal flow, and it's incredibly simple. Working as a professional requires simply that you ask good questions. When you wanna understand the signal flow, there's 2 questions that you have to ask, and that will give you all of the answers that you need. 2 very simple questions. What is the output and what is the input? Everything that's happening in a studio can really be reduced down to inputs and outputs. For example, let's start very basic and very simple. Let's say you just bought your first few pieces of recording equipment, and you've got a microphone, a computer, an interface, some headphones or speakers, and probably some sort of USB and XLR or microphone cable to connect everything. You'll want to understand the signal flow of your setup for things to make sense when you use them. We'll start by asking the question, what is the source that you're recording? And I know you said, but I thought the 2 questions were, what is the output and what is the input? The source in this case is actually an output. And let's just say it's your voice. So your face is outputting the signal. That is the first output. You're going to output the signal from your face into the input of the microphone. So this is what signal flow is. It is the output of the source to the input of the next source. And we're gonna follow this signal flow all the way from your voice, flowing through all of the different steps it's gonna get to be able to output from either your speakers or back into your headphones so you can hear it. Okay, just to complete the example, let's go through the motions of this simple home studio setup. You've got your voice, you're outputting your voice to the input of the front of the microphone. Please sing into the front of the microphone. And the output of the microphone is where you plug in your cable. You're going to output from the microphone into the input of the cable. The signal is going to travel through the cable. You're going to come out of the cable, the output, to the input of your first microphone preamp of your interface. Just for example, we'll say it's input 1 on your audio interface. Once the output of the microphone is plugged to the input of the interface, you can use the microphone preamp to turn the level of your signal either up or down. Then the audio interface is going to convert the signal from audio into information, data, and it's going to output via your USB cable to your computer. Your computer is going to take the input of the signal, which you can then select inside of your recording software. Inside your recording software, you can create a track and you choose your input. The input will be, well, the input you plugged into, which would be, for example, input 1. So you would choose input 1. Now your voice is coming in to the input 1 on your recording software. Now, usually, I think this is universal on any DAW, after your input, you choose your output. On the output, you're going to choose output 1 or 2 or monitor left and right, depending on which software you're using. But that's just going to be the default output for the first 2 outputs of your interface. So what's happening is your voice is now all the way inside the software, so you can record it. And then it is outputting 1 and 2, which sends it back through that USB or Thunderbolt cable, whatever it is, to your audio interface, converts it back to audio, and then is going to output either your speakers 1 and 2, left and right, or to your headphones, left and right, so that you can hear it and play it back. This process of the different steps that your signal, in this case your voice, is taking is called the signal flow. Now what's cool about the signal flow process, even in this very simple example, is this applies to every setup. So no matter how complex the recording studio or the recording setup or the number of inputs or outputs, it's the same process. So as long as you understand the basic idea that it's just inputs and outputs, you can then follow it through the signal flow and trace down and know what you're doing. Once you understand it, it really clicks and it allows you to make decisions much more confidently and allow for a successful workflow regardless of the studio or the setup that you're in. As I mentioned, signal flow is literally used every single day if you're working in a recording studio. And the reason for that is if you intend to record something, you need to know the signal flow of the source or else you're not going to be able to record it. The good news is once you understand signal flow, it's not something you have to consciously think about. It very much does become a subconscious thing. Now, in a lot of studios, they will have different recording setups and they'll change them for each session that they do, meaning maybe one day they'll do a session where they record a full band and they'll have mics on drums and like everything I have in here. And maybe one day they'll just do vocals and they'll have everything else put away. Now, when the setup changes, of course, your signal flow is changing. And if everyone who's working on the session is not on the same page on the signal flow, you're going to run into some problems. But if everyone is on the same page, the session will run smooth and effortlessly. Now, fortunately, since this is something that we do every single day, there's a process for keeping track of this and making it simple for everyone, and we call that the input sheet. This is what that looks like. So the input sheet is going to work best if you use a spreadsheet Excel style format of the page. And pro tip, every time you make one, please include the session details. You will thank me later. Include the date, the artist, song information for the project. So if you ever need to look back at what you used on something, you can literally see exactly what you use, exactly how everything was set up for reference. And you never know when you're going to want to pull something like that out. So it's very easy to save a copy of your input sheet for each session. You literally save a copy of the session input sheet in the session folder, which is very simple to do and very smart to do. I would encourage you to do that. Good news is you can make your own input sheet for free. It's a very simple process, and if you don't want to, then I have included a link to a input sheet for you to download for free. This is just going to be a blank input sheet that I have made, and you can use it for yourself. So something cool, I'll show you what a complex studio setup looks like on an input sheet and how to use it to navigate through your session. Now, if you're interested in a career in recording, but you want to learn a little bit more about the jobs that are available and what those jobs entail as far as the day-to-day work that you'll be doing, I have made a mini video course called The Recording Studio. The course breaks all of that down for $20, and I'll put a link to it down in the description. The input sheet has two axes. You've got your rows and you've got your columns. Now, your rows are representing the source or the inputs, and then the path for those inputs. And the columns represent each stop in the signal path. Now, if you have a basic studio setup, there will naturally be fewer vertical columns because there's just less in your setup for that signal to go through. On the other hand, if you're using a recording console, outboard gear, and a patch bay, you're going to have a lot more stops along that signal path. Either way, the input sheet is going to be the map that helps you understand and track down the signal regardless of the situation. As I mentioned before, there's a copy of a blank input sheet that you can use for your studio that you can download in the description, as well as the mini video course on the Recording Studio for $20 if you want to check that out. It's a great way to support this channel. Also, if you have any other questions and you're just starting out, one of the things I want to do on this channel is include more educational style videos like this, where I'm just kind of going over super basic stuff that you literally use every day in your work. And if once you've done this for a little while, then you kind of look at this and you take for granted of how important these basics are for the day-to-day of recording. But if you have any specific questions, let me know down in the comments. Thank you very much for stopping by. Hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And in the meantime, enjoy your studio time.